Hello, I'm Sora Luxon, and this is Lesson 23, Judgment and Discernment. Sorry, it's my water bottle. This is a huge subject or topic, so I might return to it in different ways, maybe referring to it specifically from the Tree of Life in a different lesson later. But just for now, I'm going to try to cover some of the more basic, not less meaningful, but simpler concepts involved in occultic judgment and discernment, how we use it, right? What that subject is. First of all, allow me to address the questions about the tarot card playlist that I'm working on. I'm working on it. I'm getting it made for you as quickly as I can, but things are pretty busy for me here. I have a lot of projects, including, for instance, staying on top of the Lux Occult supply shop, right? My Etsy store that I have. And creation of that inventory and order fulfillment and the shop isn't my only necessary responsibility. I have other businesses and other work as well as other obligations during my day. So yes, I'm aware there are a lot of cards in the tarot deck. Rest assured, I'm going to make a video for each and I will get through all of them as time allows. You've got to give me a chance to get there first. Also, to those people who have asked about the herbal swags from the shop, specifically from the Etsy shop, you're absolutely correct that they aren't available year-round. They'll actually be unavailable pretty soon here again until the new growing season. The occult herbs that I make available in the shop when and where I can really do come from my own personal occult garden. Everything in the shop is grown or handmade or hand painted or hand sewn by me. No joke. It's a service that I'm doing willfully and by choice, but still a service. And most of the products there are at cost because I want people to be able to have good occult products. So in this specific instance of herbal swags, when the weather turns, plants don't produce. That's how seasons work. I can't control that. So when my plants aren't growing, I really can't offer them in the store for purchase in certain ways. I will, however, see what I can do about providing those who have asked with some dried mixture options maybe in the shop so that it'll get you through the winter, such as an uncrossing blend. I had a question about specifically whether or not I could provide that. Or other herbal necessities, right? If I can harvest it and dry it and store it to keep available for you, I'll give it a try and I'll look into that and get into that as soon as I can. And thank you so much, not always to all of the people who patronize my humble little magic shop, right? It's my honor and privilege to own and operate that store and to serve you. But specifically, this time around, in this lesson, in this podcast, I want to give a hearty thank you as well to those people who've reached out supportively to me in messages after the recent slander that I've had to deal with. There was a not yet well-balanced individual who leveled some harmful public commentary towards me. It was just flat out a lie, right? This was someone being dishonest about my Lux Occult supply shop specifically. And this is why I figured it would be such an opportune moment to bring up the subject of magical judgment and discernment. Because this sort of thing happens sometimes, right? A lot of the time there's a perspective or angle of approach to understanding where someone else is coming from. And it's within our abilities to seek out that greater overview, right? That greater perspective, that bigger grasp of someone or something that's going on and find a resolution that way. But sometimes someone or something is just willfully choosing to be deceptive and or dishonest. And it's within our abilities as well to judge that accurately and stand our ground in the face of ignorance or subterfuge. Wisdom rests in our discernment and in how we apply it. And from time to time, that does mean outright acknowledging that someone else isn't just out of line, but is actually choosing to be so willfully, right? In order to create harm. They're choosing that, they're making that choice, and then they're taking that action. It happens. It's not the first time it's happened to me, nor will it be the last. We all deal with this. But as an occultist, I can say that someone else's dishonest or unfairly judgmental appraisal of me doesn't affect me much. Or definitely not in the same way it seems to affect people who don't have training or experience in Hermetic law, right? When you look around, right, if someone attacks one of your friends online who isn't an occultist, your friend seems to become very reactive or defensive, right? This is how people behave. They become reactive to attacks, both legitimate and illegitimate attacks. It doesn't seem to matter to them. I rarely come from a mentality of victimhood because I'm a trained occultist. So when someone behaves this way towards me or towards something that I have responsibility of or ownership of, my normal response is to wish them a pleasant day or hope that they can find a way to have a pleasant day or a better day, because you clearly aren't if you're thinking it's either necessary or wise on your part to come after someone like me. It's just not smart. But happily, most stuff like this is well below an occultist's needs to ever respond to much at all, right? Like, I don't feel the need to respond to this sort of thing emotionally. Instead, I choose to be grateful for the lesson, for the reminder of how I choose not to behave, right? That people like this person who decided to comment these untrue and intentionally hurtful things, right? They're providing me with that reminder, with that lesson of what I'm not. So their intention has not been fulfilled, right? That harmful intention that they had, it hasn't worked. See, I win by not even trying to, right? Thank you, Magick. And I feel good instead of stressed and mean and gross, like that person must feel to be behaving that way. Occultist 1, adversary 0, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you don't do anything about it or stand up for yourself. But before I get into that, I just want to make it really clear that I really do appreciate every generous comment, every positive word, every piece of feedback that those who understand depolarized appreciation choose and have recently been choosing to share with me after this has happened. Not everyone functions from the same harmonized and empowered state that we do, right? That an authentic occultist is trying to learn from and work with, or seek to evaluate and constantly and consistently seek to improve within ourselves, right? Some of us aren't there yet. Some of those who aren't coming from a decent or unchaotic sense of selfdom are going to lash out and behave badly towards those who do, especially towards those people who are going to come across as more balanced and harmonized. Such is the challenge we all face. Hopefully with discerning judgment, right? That's how we want to face things. And also possibly merciful patience when and where and how much we can apply it. AKA, people say and do ignorant stuff sometimes specifically to those who they feel threatened by. I can't say it bothers me very much. I can say that as you progress in magical power, as you progress in occultic studies, it won't bother you very much anymore as well. Now, again, that doesn't mean it should go ignored, right? If someone's behaving badly and you aren't bothered by it, that's great. That's good, right? That's one obstacle cleared. But that doesn't mean that you need to, have to, or should ignore it. Not being bothered and not doing anything about a problematic situation are two different things. You can notice someone's giving you a dirty look and not be bothered by it because you realize that their actions aren't being caused by you or aren't some fault of yours. But you also probably aren't going to let them continue to stand in your party and drink your champagne, right? You're not going to let them do that while they throw dirty looks at you, right? So that's the common sense of practicing magic, right? That's the rationale or the common sense approach that a magus is going to apply. You don't have to be bothered by someone else's behavior, especially if it has no power over you. But you do probably go ahead and have security remove that person confidently and quietly before that person starts interfering with your other guests' ability to enjoy themselves, or before that person has the opportunity to start bothering you and interfering with you in a more powered, in a more influential way, right? So you notice it, you aren't bothered by it, and then you remove it or remove yourself from it. There's a lot of different ways to deal with a situation, but ignoring a situation is rarely how it should be dealt with. Now, we shouldn't be too quick or too harsh in our judgments. Usually, it's being, too quick to judge. That's this sort of narrow, biased, and disturbingly severe mindset, which is going to provocate an unnecessary problem. But we should bring our judgments with confidence where they are due, right? So it's not that we're too quick to judge, but it doesn't mean we never make a judgment call. Judgment and discernment are part and parcel of each other. Still, yet again, I just want to point out, I am grateful in my own small, individuated, personal, recent experience to all of those who have stepped forward with focused pleasantness towards me, both because it's a wonderful and lovely reminder to me of how our hard work and understanding of the great mysteries, right, of the great art, of the craft, how it isn't going unappreciated. That's what every kind word that has been given to me recently has taught and told me, right, that the mysteries and our work together isn't unappreciated. And also because in doing so, in approaching me, reinforcing me in that way, right, you're reinforcing and rebalancing the scales towards authenticity and general reasonableness, right? Someone treats someone badly, you step forward to the person who's been treated badly and say, hey, I'm here, it's going to be okay. And there is a very common sense decency to that. Any occultist who is going to say otherwise probably just hasn't had enough experience yet. Any occultist is going to appreciate the reharmonizing of ignorance back towards reason, because we all know way too well, perhaps, that this specific scale between ignorance and reason seems to swing way too easily and way too far towards one side a majority of the time, right? That's what we're around for, to help rebalance that. On the tree of life, on the Kabbalic tree of life, judgment has its own entire sphere. It's the sphere of Gevurah, and it's on the pillar of severity, as opposed to the pillar of mercy, right? So you have severity as opposed to mercy. And as you path work with the tree of life, judgment is a crucial sephirah to focus on. Part of working with the sphere of judgment has to do a lot with something I've gone over quite a bit already, gratitude, right? And in two different ways it has to do with gratitude. In one way, judgment has to do with gratitude if you are failing to be grateful. If you're too busy judging something and putting your energy and intention into judgment and only have this single-sided judgment of someone or something, then you aren't going to be practicing gratitude because you aren't giving yourself room or time to be grateful. Which, as you know by now, if you've been listening to the Magick playlists, right, these YouTube podcasts I've been doing so far, gratitude is a huge part of how magic works, of how the occult works, of how that power comes to us and works with us. It's how the great art operates in and through you energetically. So shutting yourself down or off from gratitude by the misuse or overuse of judgment, biased or snap judgments, that can't ever be a good idea. But then there's also this other way that gratitude has to do with judgment, and that's how there's someone else's judgment of you, And if someone else is being judgmental of you, it's going to fail to return gratitude unto them. I'm trying to think of a better way to explain this. For instance, if you give someone something, right? Let's say you give someone a gift and they decide to critique it, right? Or they outright find fault with it. You give someone something for free. You're very generous, right? You're this generous person and you're being kind. You're working with Magick, whatever the reason. And if their immediate response is to find a problem with it or tell you they don't want it or don't need it, right? They're going to find some fault here rather than appreciating it in some way, right? If they can't find any way to appreciate a gift that you've given them, then there's nothing to work with there, right? They're just going to find fault with it. Now, how likely are you to give them another gift after that? Probably not very, right? Unless you're a sucker for punishment, right? Unless you're a glutton for punishment. If you know they won't appreciate something that someone else might appreciate, and that in being more grateful someone else than this person has shown themselves to be, right? That someone else is probably going to use your gift, the next gift you give, more or better or to a more useful effect, then clearly you should give the next thing you have to give away, that next awesome gift, that next awesome thing. You should give it to the person or bestow it to someone, right, who's going to be grateful, rather than the person who wasn't grateful the last time you gave them something. That's common sense in one way. In another way, that's a form of judgment. See, that's a form of judgment as well. It's a form of discernment or discerning judgment, right? It's you making a choice based on information you have. If you're not making choices based on information, then you're being ignorant in your own way. And that's what we're trying to get away from here, right? We're trying to avoid. So discerning judgment on your part in this scenario is to recognize the ungrateful person who was too severely judgmental and ungrateful. And then rather than ignore that information that you've been given, choose to put your resources, your good intentions, your generosity where it's going to have the chance to do the most good or have the biggest effect next time. And that's probably going to be with someone else. See, you can stand your ground while making sure you're standing firmly on the ground, right? You can stand your ground, but you have to be and have ground to stand on first. You can make determinations and decisions justly without being unfairly judgmental. Because if you're leaning, right, if you aren't standing firmly on the ground first before you make a judgment and you've got a lean going on or a bias, that's not the strongest position to have to hold on to anyway, and it's probably not going to work out well for you. So don't pass judgment, right? Judge not, right? That's in the Bible. You should be grounded and centered, first and foremost, always, right? But that doesn't mean not being discerning, right? It doesn't mean being amazingly forgetful of how others behave. Judge discerningly and be mindful of the interplay of gratitude, of the effects it has both on you and those around you, of the occult properties that can only carry more beneficial force into your life, right? That's what gratitude does when you're working with it correctly in correspondence to right judgment. Until next time.